thing burning, and so also the soul, through manifold in embodiment, is the same as that which in which it abides for the time being. Right? There was a massive revolution in thinking in India. Now, we don't know why this happened. It could be because the Brahmins were dominating the Soma and rituals, and people were antagonistic about it and didn't like that they were doing that. It could be that the real Soma had run out and the Brahmins were faking it and nobody was believing anymore. It could be many things. There were many reasons potentially for this. But we see a dramatic revolution in the psychology of the Indian mind occurring at this time, right? And we see, literally in a 400-year period, we see Kapila, the Buddha, Mahavira, Patanjali, and the seers of the Upanishads, right? And this was a revolutionary time, because what they said was that you can release the Soma, the Amrit, inside yourself, right? You don't need a priest, you don't need a plant. You can do it yourself, right? And that was think about it. You've come thousands of years of priests controlling the Soma, everybody having group highs, everybody doing their own stuff. And suddenly somebody comes along and says, hey, you can overcome all this suffering and clinging and desire for Soma and desire for immortality just by your own self, right? So it's quite a revolutionary moment in history. And the promise was that everyone can now get permanent bliss, right? So think about it. This is my thesis, is that this radical movement was a reaction against the control of both the Brahminical ritual and the Soma, and created a movement which already had been there in India with the practices of yoga, right? But was now beginning to be cultivated to a high level, right? And in order to understand that, we also understand that how is Soma released in the human body, right? And the understanding is that the DMT is a product of the pineal gland, is one of the core ingredients of ecstatic luminary experience. Have everybody heard of DMT? No. It's called dimethyltryptamine, right? DMT it's a naturally existing chemical that exists in ayahuasca and other plants around the world that, when consumed, gives you ecstatic experience. It's one of the core chemical ingredients of all these plants, like psilocybin, ayahuasca, and so on. And what they discovered was that in the child, in a baby, on the 49th day of gestation, right, a chemical DMT is released into the child, in the child's brain, right? And that chemical creates consciousness for the first time, awareness of itself, right? This was the beginning of awareness. Now, in most human beings, after birth, that subsides. Some people like Ramakrishna and all probably have DMT for life, right? But most of us don't. Most of us just lose the DMT. We don't get the DMT after a while, right? And what happens is that with the DMT release, the systems, hallucinogenic systems as well as meditative systems, can release the DMT in the pineal gland. So that is why we talk about the third eye. We talk about the awakening of that consciousness. Now, this was known all over the world. There is the Eye of Ra, which is like a cross-section of the pineal gland. That second picture is a cross-section of the pineal gland. It's a tiny gland in the middle of your brain, right? And it looks like an acorn. So if you look at the third image, it is a picture from Sumeria of an acorn on a stick with two serpents coming to it, which, if you think about it, is the Kundalini serpent coming up. You also see the acorn, by the way, in the Vatican, of all places. So the Christians knew about it, that the pineal gland was the doorway to enlightenment, right? And you also see it in the third eye of the pyramid of the Masonic Illuminati rituals, which is the pyramid with the third eye on top. So the pyramids were the human body sitting and the third eye being in the middle of your head. But I started to investigate as to where in India we knew about the pineal gland, right? And it was so obvious to me when I saw it that it hadn't clicked for me before. So I just want to share that with you, and we can debate it later. But the yoga of Soma is Shiva. Is that if you look at that picture on the left side is the Kamakya Pita in Assam, right? Which is considered to be yoni and linga together, right? This is probably the oldest yoni and linga in India, right? Oldest one, this one of them. And if you look at the Shiva lingam, you will see that it actually, most people have always interpreted it as a phallic male penis coming through the vagina of the cosmos, right? That is the understanding of the Shiva mythology. But if you look at it carefully, it actually also looks like the pineal gland of Egypt. It actually looks like that from above, right? And if you look at some of the earliest forms of lingam, they're actually eggs. They are not penises. They are not large objects. They are eggs that were found, beautiful black stones that were found in the mountains. They're beautiful, right? And what we also find is that if you look at a typical Shiva temple, this is from a Chola temple on the right side bottom, is that the body of the Shiva is lying down, and that's what a temple architecture is. And at the head is the linga, where he would be lying down. And that's looking upwards, and that looks like a vault of his head, where the pineal gland would be, it's on the right side. So I'm going to explore this further over the next few years, but it's an area of very interesting study of the pineal gland and the knowledge in ancient India. How to release the soma within? And this is the big question, right? Because what happens if you take psychedelics is that unless you continue to take psychedelics, you cannot replicate the feeling or the thing permanently. You will get a glimpse, you will be awakened, you will see it, and you will want it, right? But it's not addictive. Psychedelics that are addictive are dangerous, like coca and things like that, where the chemical compounds. But psychedelics that are healing, like DMT, ayahuasca, cannabis, these are non-addictive, and these are being shown therapeutic, healthy. They help you, but they don't give you a permanent state of bliss. They give you an instant taste of what it'll be like. If you took LSD, you will feel the ocean of vibration. You will feel the light. You will see it, and then you'll come back and you go, wow, how do I get back there? So do I do LSD again? Do I do ayahuasca again? Or is there another way? So in India, the big question was, is there another way? And the answer was clearly yes from yoga. And it's grown into Kundalini and all these schools of thinking now. Kundalini Kriya and all these schools, right? And yoga has really flowered into this way. So Kundalini is one way. Pranayama is another way. And pranayama is very important because there's actually pranayama, I wrote them down here, called Sahita Kumbhak Pranayama and Anunam Vilam Pranayama and Gayatri Soma. Are three techniques which I'll share with you later when you talk to me today. But there are ways in which you can awaken soma drip in your own body from the top of your pineal gland through the nasal cavity into the system. And it's used in what they call Kriya Yoga in India. It's used in Kriya Yoga, right? So it's a way of touching the tongue at the top of the mouth and releasing soma slowly. And these are known techniques, right? And you also have Tantra, which is the use of Bij mantra, vibration, sound, geometry, mudra to create awakening, right? And trance, which is known in India, but the boom shankar cults and the dancing and the euphoria, and you can do it with that also, right? It actually becomes more permanent, and it's almost like bhakti, what they call bhakti, right? Anything bhakti, prayer, devotion, meditation will release DMT. All will release DMT. And the highest one is what they call Raja Yoga, which is dhyana, which is basically inner concentration to the level where you awaken the third eye, the pineal gland by yourself. And that's the hardest route, but it is the most guaranteed. So, what does Soma give you? Light, strength, beauty, music. One of the things that when you took Soma in the ancient times, the Gandharvas will come and sing to you. The Apsaras will dance for you. It was obviously male dominated, but still, you get the idea. It will come up, it'll come up, The third part is so beauty, magic. This is magical, not just, if you had negative thoughts, obviously it'll be slightly demonic, but it's positive. It can open up all these vistas. Wisdom guides, people come to you. That's what angels and elves and gods and devas and asuras are. These are intelligences and just outside our dimension, who are there within us and outside of us. And we can tap into them through our use of these things of SOMA. The last one is bliss and ecstasy, and most important is the knowledge of immortality, which is that you dissolve into cosmos and you realize that you are not this body, you are not this thing, you are an immortal soul that is everywhere in the cosmos at the same time, and you and that are the same element, right? And that's the big message of the Vedas, Vedanta, and all the Indian wisdom traditions. So you can say that that's the religion that resulted, right? But it is a very powerful one. These are some of the books I recommend you read, right? Graham Hancock's Supernatural. Watson's book on SOMA is very good, but the more recent book is this SOMA book by David Spess that covers all the research being done right now, right? A very good book. And if you want to discover Ayurvedic techniques of curing with SOMA, how to release SOMA inside yourself, Frawley and Vasant Lad have written this great book that you should read. David Frawley, the great David Frawley. Thank you.